Hey everyone, I'm not feeling so hot, but I still wanted to record the annual winners and losers of the NHL trade deadline. So for the 2024 deadline, thank you to everyone that joined the live stream. I do want to go over some winners here, more winners than losers, and then I'll finish off with the losers. For this deadline, I feel like a lot of teams didn't do a whole lot, and then you have a couple teams that did a whole lot. So I'll go through winners and losers, maybe some teams in between that I don't really want to designate a winner or loser, and then, of course, how it goes. Maybe I'll call a loser, and they end up going to win the Stanley Cup. So welcome if you're a new subscriber. Hit that like button, notification bell, and, of course, please leave your comments down below. Let's start with the Buffalo Sabres. So, you know what? The Sabres, not in a playoff spot, not close to a playoff spot, but I really like the moves they made, specifically getting Bowen Byram. I just think the fit is great. I think that trade was a win-win trade, specifically on what both teams needed. And I do have a lot of respect for the Sabres granting Kyle Okposo's wish and sending him to the Florida Panthers. So I think overall the Sabres concede as a W. They still have most of their team intact. And I do think that the Sabres have bigger and better things to come. Carolina Hurricanes, I mean, pretty simple. They didn't give up a whole lot for what we were expecting in terms of quality. But, I mean, they gave up a lot of quantity. I think the Jake Gensel trade is a win. I did make the video and I said I don't think it was the ultimate fleece that people were talking about, but I mean, the trade was a win for the Hurricanes. I don't think anyone can debate that. And I like the Kuznetsov bet. I think if you look at the Hurricanes forward group across the board, line 1 to line 4, I don't think you can argue that they have the best depth in the Eastern Conference. I mean, I'm going to talk about another team coming up, but Carolina, their fourth line is as good as some second lines in the league, which is crazy to say. So got to be a winner for me. Colorado Avalanche, I mean, before the actual last day of the deadline, I think they were the winners already. Just love some of the moves they made. As I said, the Middlestat Byram trade, I think, was just a win-win in general. And I think some of the, depth and just character guys that they brought in, I really like. And I do think when you look at Colorado just across the board, the only question mark that they maybe have is Georgiev and the goaltending. Obviously, we'll see what happens, but I think their defense is good. And I think when you look at their forward group, I think specifically their depth now looks a lot better, because I think when you look last year, and why I picked the hot take of Seattle beating them was because they were so weak in the bottom 6. So I think that's improved big time after the trades. Florida Panthers, I don't think they gave up a whole lot, but improved in 2 aspects. Top 6, bottom 6. They got Tarasenko to complement that already stacked top 6. And for their bottom 6, Kyle Okposo getting a leader in there never hurts. So I think the Panthers, they're looking nice obviously right now, and made 2 additions that didn't cost a lot. Philadelphia Flyers, the reason why I call them a winners is because they got a first-round pick from Sean Walker, and that's an ultimate win. Yes, they had to take back half of Ryan Johansson, but I think when you look at the Flyers in terms of their direction, they were not supposed to be a playoff team this year. They were not supposed to be anywhere close to a playoff team, but 2 things happened. 1, John Tortorella, and 2, Sean Couturier. Tortorella is always a coach that brings the best out of his players, and always, I mean, you saw it with Columbus, always kind of brings a mid-team to like playoff environment. And then Sean Couturier has just been a huge aspect for that team. So they kept guys like Scott Laughton and Nick Seeler, and I just think that they've got term, and if the Flyers do have a weaker, season next year, they can always flip those guys at the deadline or the following deadline because they re-signed Seeler. So I think the Flyers are in a good spot. Obviously the goaltending scenario because of certain issues and something that went down. But I mean, at the end of the day, the Flyers forward group, really bright, and I think the fact that they drafted Mitch Koff, and you know how great that's going to be, and then their defense group, I think is really playing that Tortorella style. So I'll just call the Flyers a win in terms of their season, but also I think they had some good value at the deadline. Winnipeg Jets, I mean, Toffoli was huge. I think when you look at Sean Monahan and Toffoli together, former Ottawa 67s, that's going to really complement the second line, and along with a few other teams, the Jets probably have one of the better depths in the league. So I like what the Jets did. They didn't give up a crazy amount, and I think the fact that they didn't give up a first-round pick for Toffoli is also a win. Tampa Bay Lightning, I mean, here's the thing. They got the 2 things they wanted without giving up a lot, and I think that labels them as a win for me. I think, and I'll compare it to a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs in a second here. I think the Lightning just got maybe higher ceiling players that could really benefit from the culture change. Like Matt Dumba has seen like the Wild, for example, and no shot against the Wild, but they just haven't really been a successful team. And then he went to the Coyotes. Now in Tampa, Dumba's going to get a chance to play with either Hedman or Sergachev in the playoffs, and I think that Chernak also on that right side will help. It'll kind of keep a lot of the weight off Dumba's shoulders. And I think the Duclair addition, the fact that Jack Thompson, I think he's really underrated right shot defenseman. I think he'll have a future in the NHL, but the fact that they just gave up him and a third for Duclair, who is, apparently wanted by many teams in the league, that's a win for Tampa in my eyes. Vegas Golden Knights, they're the ultimate winner. They they use the system to their advantage. When you get guys like Hannafin, Mantha, and who's that guy? Oh, yeah, Tomas Hertl from their rival San Jose Sharks. Yeah, you know what? The Golden Knights, ultimate winners of this deadline. Regardless of what happens in the future, they were just a Stanley Cup winner, and in the near future here, this is going to help them become a Stanley Cup winner again. The only thing I'll say, though, is they're in a wildcard spot as I record this video, so they got to make the playoffs to secure an absolute win here, but in terms of the deadline moves itself, especially if they re-sign Hannafin, they've got to be winners. Ducks, winners. I think they should have done more, but the fact that they got a first-round pick for Henrique and Carrick is a win. I don't necessarily think that's like a lose for the Edmonton Oilers because I think that's exactly what they needed, and I actually predicted that trade. I said if they included Henrique and Carrick together, it would require a first. So I don't mind the trade for the Oilers, but I think it's a win for the Ducks. You get the value on 2 rentals, and you get a first-round pick for those 2 rentals. So win. All right, losers. So this is losers for 2 reasons. 1, they lost in the trades, or 2, didn't do enough. Chicago, for being one of the worst teams in the league, they just didn't do enough. They got a 5th round pick for Beauvillier, and at the end of the day, I get a lot of those guys didn't have value, but like a Colin Blackwell or whoever it was, like even if you just got a couple more 5th round picks, at least you could maybe like trade a couple of 5ths and trade up to a 4th round spot, and you never know with those spots. So I just think I get it. They wanted to keep guys in the dressing room, but for a team in the bottom of the league, I just feel like there had to be more there. And I get, again, they want to keep familiar guys around Bedard, but re-signing Dickinson, re-signing Foligno, I get it. I get why they did those things, but sometimes getting the value and then just looking for guys you like in free agency makes more sense because they didn't really get those guys on cheap deals. So I think based on the direction of Chicago, their long-term future is going to be great, but right now, not so much at this deadline. Columbus Blue Jackets, they traded Roslovic, got a decent return, and I thought maybe they were going to trade Merzlikins or maybe trade another defenseman. Peak wasn't really getting much. So, I don't really want to say they're like full-out losers, but I expected more from them, and I honestly I think their direction throughout the year, starting from the Babcock situation and the Kekalainen firing, I just don't think they've really been on a good set path. So, not the ultimate losers, but just didn't do enough for me. Detroit Red Wings, again, I don't want to call them the ultimate losers, but I just don't think they did enough. For their benefit, I was hoping to see a top 6 forward addition. And while they're right there in the playoff race, I think they were trying to trade Justin Hall. Didn't get an upgrade on defense. So, I just think it's like the lack of direction in terms of that. But again, Patrick Kane's been unbelievable in their forward group. They've gotten a lot of guys that stepped up. So Detroit's not the ultimate losers, but again, just didn't do enough. Toronto Maple Leafs, similar. I feel like it's just the same message. I don't want to call them the ultimate losers. I actually like the additions they made, but I was expecting one more. I really think it's kind of a disappointment and really just deflating to see the team you have together, the type of skill that you have on this team. And I just feel like they didn't really send that message, especially guys that like Bertuzzi and Domi that really have just exerted that passion the last few weeks and just really shown to kind of up their game leading into the playoffs. I really would have liked to see a right shot defenseman next to Riley and build that defense group. But I just think the message for the team is just kind of mixed right now because you acquired a left shot defenseman and a guy like Simon Benoit is out of the lineup. So I think for Simon Benoit, he's had a great season. There's no way he should be the 4th or 5th left shot defenseman on this team. So either for me, you try Edmondson on the right side, maybe next to Riley, because they were teammates with the Moose Jaw Warriors back in junior, and I think they played together for some time. So we'll see how the Leafs adjust with their defense group, but I think it was a little disappointing not to have that big move with all the other teams like Vegas and you look at Colorado, Carolina. Again, I think some people will debate, well, you called the Lightning winners and they didn't really make... the Lightning have been Stanley Cup winners, and at the same time, they actually haven't been proven as a consistent team this year. Like, if anything, if the Leafs were like the Lightning, where it's like you had major stretches of negative hockey and you just have... Like, it's not like the Leafs have faced major disappointment for lengthy periods of time. Obviously, they've had their roller coaster and ups and downs. But to my point, the Leafs more recently have put together quite a stretch of games with wins. And I mean, if you want to make the excuse that they got the 2 losses against Boston, their first round opponent, well, I mean, it seems like Trey Living was already making the decision before those games. After the Lyubushkin trade, it was kind of like, oh yeah, there's not really going to be another big trade. So I think it's a little disappointing that Lyubushkin, Edmondson, and Dewar are the only guys that came out of it. But I think that's also following last year when they got O'Reilly, Shen, and those additions. So not the ultimate losers, but I wanted more. That's my summary for the Leafs. All right, LA Kings, I mean, I'll just say this in a funny way. The fact that they almost got rid of the Dubois contract and brought in Allmark would have been the ultimate win, but it didn't happen, so losers here. They're in a playoff spot, in a division spot, and I really don't think they made the addition they wanted to. If they made that Allmark trade, I mean, I would have called them winners instantly, but didn't happen. Montreal Canadiens, again, another team I just didn't feel they did enough. I mean, the Jake Allen one, and this is where I want to preface why I'm calling them losers here. There was a lot of rumors suggesting that they were going to get like a second or even as high as like a first-round pick for Allen. Maybe not last offseason, but the offseason before. Like within the last year and a half, they are being offered more for Jake Allen, and they chose to re-sign Jake Allen. And then now, after re-signing Jake Allen, they had to retain 50% on that contract extension and only get a mid-round pick. So I think that's the disappointing part for Montreal, is that they, on 2 occasions, had offers that were much more than they were getting now with Jake Allen and Josh Anderson. There was a lot of rumors suggesting that they were getting either a first or second round pick for Josh Anderson. Now that contract's close to untradeable. So I think when you look at those perspectives, and they didn't trade guys like, I would say, Jake Evans and David Savard, I mean, I just don't think you can convince me that they didn't get a first round pick offer for David Savard. I truly think they did. And if that's the case, I think you should have made that trade. And even if you got like a mid-round pick for Jake Evans, like a 3rd or 4th round pick, Connor Dewar got a 4th round pick. So I would imagine Jake Evans would get a 3rd or 4th. So the fact that you probably could have got a 1st plus for David Savard and a 3rd or 4th for Jake Evans, and had you made the decisions a couple years ago or a year ago on Josh Anderson, Jake Allen, I think they would have been a better spot. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Habs. Seattle Kraken, again, don't want to call them losers for like the moves they did make, but I just feel like they're in that in-between stage. And if there's one thing we've learned from certain teams, is like the worst thing you can do is be in the in-between stage. So if they don't make the playoffs and didn't make trades like Justin Schultz and some of their rentals, I just feel like it's a mistake. You didn't get assets back, you didn't make the playoffs, and you're just kind of in that in-between. Pittsburgh Penguins, again, I don't think they were the ultimate fleece in that Gensel trade, but they definitely should have done better. That condition on that draft pick is really annoying. It should have been an automatic first-round pick. Start with that. So the Pens got to be losers. I think they should have tried to trade Riley Smith if there was value there. If they're still trying to make the playoffs, I guess I get that, but that's a long stretch and very unrealistic at this point that they're going to make it. And, I mean, I actually like the Bunting addition in terms of just bringing back a roster guy, not trying to completely sell off the team, but I do think in terms of like the deals they made and Dubas' trade for Karlsson, while I liked the risk of it, I just think that at the end of the day, the dynamic, the way Karlsson and Burns were in San Jose, I prefaced that in the video when I did make the video. It just wasn't really going to work for the style. So disappointing, and I think the Pens just had a bad year. Ottawa Senators, just quick summary. They were expected to be a playoff team this year. They're not, and they didn't make trades. And yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary. You're at the bottom of the league. You didn't make trades, and a lot of your guys are decreasing in value. San Jose Sharks, last loser of the day. I mean, I think it's pretty simple. I actually liked the return for Duclair for them specifically. I think that was a win-win trade for both sides. But, I mean, yeah, you're one of the worst teams in the league. You didn't trade enough, and you got literally basically nothing for Kaapo Kähkönen. That was the most shocking thing. Like, you got basically nothing for Kaapo Kähkönen, like a low-end draft pick, and you take the Vanacek contract. Like, what are you doing? And then the trade to Vegas. I mean, if I'm a Sharks fan, I'm doing some crazy rants the next few weeks. Like, the Hurdle trade is just unforgivable, I think, in my opinion. I think to use your last retention spot of 3, to trade Hurdle to a rival in Vegas, and to, get the 2 first-round picks and prospect, but then to give up 2 third-round picks. Like, I just feel like it should have been straight up 2 first-round picks and Edstrom. Just leave it at that. Not having to give up 2 third-round picks that are going to be high. So I don't know. What San Jose did was just mind-boggling in my opinion. I get you want to just rebuild and be trash so you get a top 3 pick. But to use your third retention spot, like you have like very minimal leverage next deadline. And yeah, I just think what they did was just a disaster. And honestly, that New Jersey trade really pisses me off. I don't know how you get basically nothing for Kakinen. But then on top of that, like, are you serious? You took that Vanacek contract? I mean, Vanacek could maybe bounce back next year and you get a mid-round pick for him, but I just think that risk was unnecessary. So anyways, give me your thoughts, guys, on the winners and losers. That's my not quick video. I went through it, but I just want to give my summary. I make this video every year, and yep, we'll make more videos leading into the draft, playoffs, all that good stuff. Hit the subscribe, like, notification bell, and we'll talk on the next video or stream. Peace.